Hello and welcome, everyone. Very glad to have all of you here. I know you all got the message that we're recording. We're going to put it on YouTube. And for those of you that are brave, we love having your faces. Genaro is going to be presenting, and it will help him to see your faces and reactions and energy and all that good kind of thing, to let all of you know. And very, very excited to have Genaro here. I got to tell you, the very first live public class that I taught when I started the Center for Coaching Certification way back in 2010, Genaro was in. So we go back a long way on that, and it's so fun to still have him here and part of the team. Genaro's been on the team for a while, teaching classes in Spanish, which is awesome. And last year he went through the second level of training with us to get his PCC. So that was very fun part of the journey. And in terms of what he's going to share with you here, he offers so much expertise. He's got a company that is straddling the border. He's both in the United States and in Mexico, doing a lot of executive coaching, as well as a lot of different training programs, etc. And he's a well-known and recognized author of a book called Do. Now, for today, the origin of results. Genaro, I'm going to turn it over to you. And what he before I forgot to say to everyone, please use the chat box, say hi to each other, let us know where you're calling in from, that kind of thing. And for those of you that are brave and want to come on live, please do. We really want faces and voices in the conversation. So, okay, Genaro, now I'll give it to you.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, hello, everybody. I'm very excited to be here with all of you. And as I was mentioning, Kathy, before we were live, I really want to have a conversation with all of you. So I'll be checking all the time the chat to include your comments and also to consider what are your questions, insights, and please feel part of it because we're going to make this together. So I want to say, well, thank you very much. Boneta from Chicago, welcome. And Darlene, hello from Denver. And Phil also from Denver. Rachel from Indianapolis. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. And also, if you can use the reactions, so you can go to reactions and raise your hand, put a happy face. During all the webinar, let's have that kind of interactions together. Rosario from Mexico. Hello, Rosario. And also, what I really invite you to have close to you, it's a piece of paper and a pen, because during this webinar, I know that there are going to be some ideas that I want you to take notes. And also, good, Phil. Perfect. And also, please feel free to raise your hand if you want Kathy to open the microphone. I want to remind you that we're recording this session. We're going to post it in YouTube. And if you raise your hand and we open the microphone, well, you will be recorded. Just have that in mind while we're recording this session.
Yeah, and actually, hey, Nardo, they can unmute themselves.
Oh, here we go.
So if they want to come in live and unmute, they'll have that option.
Perfect. Perfect. So, well, one of the first things that I want to ask all of you is that when you heard about this webinar, the regions of results, what came to your mind? What are you expecting from this conversation? Let's start from there.
Comments in the chat box, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, they went quiet on us.
Yeah, they went. Yeah, and Hector, it's great to have you here from Guadalajara. Okay, Kelly says, okay, improvement. What's an idea? Yes, for sure. What else? Because the region of results, it's like, okay, what's the root of really delivering? What's the root of really making a change? And Melissa says, I didn't really have any thoughts, which is what I want to listen. So you're in the right place. And what motivates people? And yes, but also it's how are we taking responsibility of our destiny? How are we really taking charge of our lives? And if we are a coach, how are we really empowering our clients, making sure they are not victimizing themselves? And how can we catch ourselves when we're victimizing, when we're feeling the victim? Phil says, well, Maria, passion as a fuel for action. I like it. Feel a balance between the time required for the process, but also ways to improve how to see transformation in clients' lives. Nice. Thank you for sharing. Let's continue digging deeper in this with these ideas. And here are the goals. Well, here are the goals for this session. The first one, we're going to be talking about taking ownership as well as responsibility for what happens. A lot of times we feel that the life is happening to us, but a lot of times, well, let me rephrase this. Most of the times, wherever we are, it's our fault or it's our success. But we are all that sequence of habits and successes and failures. And during the long run, we are all that conjunction of success, failure, and also how are we behaving when we are in challenging times. So we're going to be exploring also how does that feel to be part of the solution, and some ideas to really raise our conscious level and on those kind of things. Am I really part of the solution, or sometimes am I really part of the problem? Because what we do as coaches is to make sure we have a growth mindset, we have a solution mindset, and that our client is building that solution mindset. You know, and we're going to also be talking about key ideas to neutralize victimization and procrastination. We are going to be talking about personal accountability. Okay, everything starts with us. Let's see what else you're sharing here at the chat. Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking. And raise your hand or put something in the chat regarding that. What does personal accountability means to you? And in the meantime, I'm going to be sharing these learning outcomes, but it's important to know because it's a very, very powerful concept. It's a very used concept, but a lot of times we're not really taking the full advantage of putting our personal accountability to the next level. And we own how we manage our emotions and the decisions we make. Absolutely. It has to be with emotional intelligence for sure. Accountability can have a negative connotation. I'm very interested in that, Kelly. Say more, please. Very, very. Accountability can taking responsibility for your own actions, taking ownership of thoughts, actions, and behaviors, being self-aware. Melissa says to mean to taking ownership over your life decisions, etc. And I don't know, Kelly, share more, but yeah, you're right. Personal accountability is not taking responsibility of what other people are accountable for. That's for sure. And sometimes people take a lot of charge, but not necessarily in what's key. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. I'm going to hold you. Oh, okay, I got it. Exactly. Because we're going to talk about that because let's start with holding ourselves accountable. That's why the region of results, it's me. It's my accountability. It's my conscious level about my own accountability. We want to make other people accountable when we're not very accountable for ourselves yet, you know? So it's very important to show our leadership by example. How? By being accountable and the example that we want to see in other people. We also will be talking about ideas to keep our focus on solutions. And of course, as coaches, and even if you are not a coach, it's super important in life to learn how to make powerful questions, because those powerful questions make people think. Also, you can really make people be accountable, but not by holding them accountable, but by making them think and then finding their own solutions for their own definition of success. Anela, perfect. I believe. Okay. Thank you, Nella. Thank you for being here. She's saying hi and also sharing with me that she's listening to what we are sharing, but she will not be able to participate, but she's here with us. Thank you. Okay, so let's start. This is what we're going to be talking about, but let's start with what's personal accountability. Some of you shared some ideas, and let's start with that accountability is discipline of mind. When we don't stop to analyze what we're thinking, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and what's really the deliverable that I want to get from any situation, I'm not disciplining my mind yet. So personal accountability is raising my conscious level about, I'm in this situation, what do I want to get from this? What's the outcome that I really want to focus on? What are the specific actions or the vital actions that will move forward my results? What am I feeling right now? And what are the feelings or emotions that I want to feel in the future? What I will do about it? And sometimes we're going in standby and we're not stopping to discipline our mind. So please be aware of that. And if at certain point there is an idea that you want you want to add something else, or you have a contrasting idea, please do so, because contrasting ideas also nurture the conversation very, very, very much. And Rachel saying, it makes me think of the C.Y. Wakeman quote. Okay, accountability, not a skill set, it's a mindset. Yes, accountability, it's a mindset. It's not a switch that we turn it off or on. Once we see it and once we're about of personal accountability, either you're accountable or not, because you know what's to be accountable. So it's a mindset of life. Probably we're not accountable in certain situations. It's because we're not catching ourselves when we are procrastinating or when we are not focusing on the solution. But thank you very much for that sharing, Rachel. It's the focus on results. What do I want to get from this? And when I'm talking results, I'm not just talking about actions. I'm also talking about feelings. I'm also talking about the environment that you are creating. It's not just deliverables, like hard deliverables, also soft deliverables. How am I making people feel? That's also a result, okay? Effective questions. Okay, we're going to dig deeper about effective questions later on, but to make effective questions, it's when we really make people think and in a way to create their own knowledge, because we're not biasing the question with what we think. we're letting the other person explore their own solution? That's a really effective question. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but that really boosts accountability. And another concept that probably many of you know, it's feed forward instead of feedback. The feedback is focused so much in the past, but the feed forward is focusing on what do you want to be different in the future. And a lot of times when there's something that happened and something wrong happened in the past, we are sometimes come these ideas like, well, but what happened and what I could do better, which is fine. But what about if we just put ourselves in the present? Is like, okay, whatever was the outcome, what are my learnings? And from here, what am I going to do different? From here, what are the questions that I'm going to ask to move forward and make sure we don't repeat our failure again? So feed forward, it's just focusing so much in the learnings in the present to nurture the future. Because a lot of times with the feedback, we spend too much time analyzing the past. The past is going to give us information for the present to use for the future. But let's be aware that spending too much time in the past is not going to move us where we want to go. But if we start creating that vision of the future and engaging all other people in co-creating that future, we are feeding forward. Nice, Donetta. Nice, nice. Well, and check this out. Stealing, she says. Yeah, because at the end, if you think about, there's a nice book. I can't remember the author, but it's like, it's called Steal Like an Artist, because it's about creativity. And that person, that author, I'm going to check it out later. That author says that originality does not exist, because any piece of art or any innovation, it's a combination of stealing many ideas and putting them together. And yeah, and feed forward, what about if we steal or we ask for all those ideas that to analyze the present, and then we use our knowledge and our creativity and our questioning to create that new future. So thank you very much for that idea. Every day I beat the old me, which is, how are you challenging yourself? A lot of times we're putting ourselves in comparison with other people. But what about if I'm just comparing with my old me? So how am I better than yesterday? How am I better than a month ago? How am I better than a year ago or 5 years? And then feed forward. How do I want to be better during 2023? Specifically on what? How am I going to commit to that new me? Which new habits? What kind of training? If you're a coach, how are you going to boost your coaching skills to really to challenge your clients even more, so they can grow even higher? Why? Because you are really challenging their mindsets, and you're really making them create options for that future that they want to achieve. Remember, we're not part of that equation, but what we are really doing there, it's we're asking questions to open new possibilities for them, because probably they are not seeing the world from that perspective, and your questions are helping them see that perspective to beat their old me, you know. Also, emotional intelligence. You mentioned that. Some of you mentioned, when I ask about personal accountability, it's managing my emotions. For sure. For sure. And if we think about emotional intelligence, It has to be with be aware with what I'm feeling. Something that I want to share with you is that I have this tendency of focusing on the logic, on the deliverables, on the hard things. And I've been training so hard, and Kathy knows that, in how to connect the heart and how to really connect with emotions and how to challenge my clients to connect with their emotions and how they are handling their emotions. A lot of people say, well, we need to control our emotions. And I say, no, let's not control your emotions, just manage them. Be subtle about that and manage them. Be aware of them and then think, what am I going to do different to change that emotion? It's just that. And if you're in a coaching session, it's the same thing. How is that making you feel? What can make you feel better? How does that look like? Describe it. What are the actions or what's the mindset that will help you move forward? So they are creating the whole path, but they are aware with what they are feeling. And I just, I can share with all of you, I'm a little bit ashamed that at the beginning, my first 3 years when I was a coach for years, I was not focusing so much on emotions. It was just deliverables, they have to achieve results, and I was not letting them connect with emotions because also I was not connecting with my own emotions. Check that out. So talking about personal accountability, if I want to be a better coach, let's start with how am I connecting with my own emotions? How am I handling my emotions? And how am I taking responsibility of what I'm feeling and what I want to feel? I feel from a neuroscience perspective, emotions happen faster than conscious thought, which is partly why we cannot control them, but we can manage them. Thank you for that, Phil. Absolutely. Because I hear a lot about, well, what you need to do is control your emotions. It's like, no, let's just be more subtle about that. Let's just manage them. Thank you, Phil. I add value with what I do say and do. If we're talking about personal accountability, it's because we're walking the talk. Personal accountability, it's delivering by far more than what I promise. That's personal accountability. Personal accountability. I've been training karate since I was 4 years old. Okay, and my sensei, my karate sensei, used to say that never let your tongue move faster than your kicks. Which means do not promise what you can deliver. So, and I don't know if you know people that their mouth and their ideas move faster than the results. So we're showing personal accountability when we are over delivering. Why? Because we're really taking responsibility of what we are doing, and not just our successes. We're taking really responsibility of our failures and what's the solution to what I did wrong or I could do better. It's really looking to the mirror and saying, I'm not perfect. I will never be perfect. I'll make mistakes. And I have the skills to overcome any mistake that I make because I will continue making mistakes. Even if I don't want, and taking charge of that at the beginning feels uncomfortable. Of course, we all do it, but a lot of times we want to hide it like under the carpet, that mistake. But what about if I just look at that mistake, take like that bull, take the horns of that bull and say, okay, I can manage it. I can overcome this. I can learn from this. So far, any thoughts? Okay, let's do the opposite exercise. Just share in the chat. What's the opposite of personal accountability? What's exactly the opposite of personal accountability? Let's do a brainstorm there. cows. Kelly says. What else? Blame, absolutely. Blaming others, absolutely. What else? Not my responsibility, not my fault, confusion, yeah, excuses, many excuses, yeah. What else? Phil says, regarding our words, Proverbs 14:10 says, okay, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Those who love it will eat its fruit. Okay. And Phil, do you want to share a little bit more about that if you open your mic? You willing to? Blame shifting.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, it has to do with if we're negative versus positive in our words or in our outlook. If we speak negatively and we foster an environment of negativity, that brings other people into that same environment and we reap the fruit of that environment. So that if we're negative, we reap the consequences of being negative, which is more negative in our life. But if we're positive and we're encouraging and we speak positive words to people, we receive that back. So that's whatever we do. That's the fruit we're going to receive. That's what we're gonna quote eat.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much for opening your mic, Phil. Yeah, and people say it's karma, you know. I love, but it's
Well,
as simple as, yeah, please go ahead, Kathy.
I was going to say, it's really interesting when you think about it. People that are negative, well, their health deteriorates, it impacts that, and they tend to have more challenges and problems than people who are positive.
Yeah, and this is what it's beautiful about coaching. What's beautiful about coaching is that it's a language. When people, one day I heard Kathy saying, like, I speak a little bit of Spanish, I speak English, and I speak coaching. And I said, okay, I'll do too. Because it's another language. I mean, my clients, after a coaching session, they are super excited. They feel empowered. They feel that they can achieve what they decided to do during that session. And what's different, and they are not very aware, is that that conversation is not a common conversation. Because of the powerful questions, because of the positive language, because of the phenomenal words that I'm using, because no one is judging them or criticizing them, because everything is possible and they're seeing the pros and cons. So they feel empowered from the language, but the language is a positive language. So personal accountability, it's to be proactive. If there is something that is vital for my success, I'll do it, because procrastination, it's the opposite of personal accountability when I know it's vital to do it. And there are, for example, people that are starting their business, they're entrepreneurs, but they don't like to sell. It's like, okay, you can be the best on what you're doing, but that skill is super important. And it's important that you take responsibility of that commercial process if you want to be successful, or to attracting that talent and really, really boosting that talent. But a lot of times we're procrastinating what's vital for our success. And I've seen entrepreneurs procrastinating selling. but they are not procrastinating continuous innovation and getting better processes. But you can be the best at whatever you do, but if that is vital, you're not showing personal accountability, because that's the next step for the success that you want. You know, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yes, I get it. Okay. And yes, Darlene, lack of responsibility. Okay, so let's go back again to and another thing that I mentioned at the beginning is victimization. Be careful with that, because a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm not doing good because the government, I'm not going good because the exchange rate, I'm not going. Okay, of course that's important, but what can you do in the context? What else can you do? Even in any situation you are, even if it's a very, very complicated situation, there are options. Are you brave enough to find those options? And are you brave enough to learn what you will need to learn in that new environment? That's it. It's because now there is not a lot of sand and there are more waves. Okay, are you willing to learn to surf? Because now it's surfing time, you know? Okay, so let's continue talking about personal accountability, which is, why am I focusing on this? Because we said that my mindset, my personal accountability mindset is the origin of results. My thoughts challenge me to give my best. I don't know if that has happened to you. It has happened to me, so I believe it's we are in the same we're all humans. That we do something wrong and then we say a bad word about ourselves. It's like, oh, come on again. And we're having those kind of bad feelings towards our failures. But what about if we challenge ourselves and we don't say bad words to ourselves when we did something wrong, and we are just, okay, this happened, I did it, I could do better. I could do that better, but what am I learning right now? And how am I challenging based on that learning? How am I challenging myself? How am I measuring my success? Another idea here, it's my actions go beyond my words. We were talking about that before. I'm responsible for my successes and my failures. Even more for my failures. Remember that your failures are your great teachers. Your failures are it's your sensei, you know, and we need to respect our failures because our failures are the ones that are really making us grow. The successes, of course, it makes full, it gives us empowerment, but our failures are showing us those weaknesses that if we are more aware, if we train ourselves on that, we get stronger. So I know people that, well, it's difficult to deal with failures, even because sometimes there are failures that or mistakes that they really feel bad. But that doesn't mean that we were part of that. So, but what does that mean is that I can use that for my growth. It's challenging me to be open to different ideas and share my idea. That's personal accountability. A lot of times we can be, sometimes we're in a meeting and we're listening to all these ideas and we're not asking questions. We are not sharing our ideas, and it's as important to use our active listening than to also nurture the conversation, making questions and adding our ideas. Neutralize victimization in myself and in others, and we're going to be talking about that because I don't know if that has happened to you, for the coaches that are here, that sometimes we start hearing our clients that they are victimizing about a situation. And it's important that our questions make a mind shift there. And even not in coaching, I don't know if it has happened to you that we are with a good friend and that friend is like feeling like crap and feeling bad. And sometimes like, yeah, I got you. Yeah, it's super hard. And we're nurturing that victimization. Yeah, exactly. But how can we change it? Even if it's with a friend and it's not a coaching session, it's like, what are you feeling? Oh, I can't imagine how you're feeling, but what are your options? How do you want to how do you want to feel later? And just changing the conversation, well, not change the conversation, it's continue exploring in that conversation to make the other person be aware that there are many possibilities from there to the future. There will always be possibilities. So it's to raise our conscious level to don't let people victimize a lot. Probably we said, okay, let's have that conversation for the next 10 minutes. It's healthy, but later on, I'll ask questions because we can talk about what's coming next. A lot of times we spend so much time in the victimization part. I'm trustworthy in my agreements with myself and others. So this trustworthy part, it's super important. If you think the people that you like to collaborate the most, your best supplier, your best client are people that you can trust, are people that will let you know in advance if something is not going to happen. If I make a commitment with Kim for next Friday and I know it will not happen, as soon as I know, I call Kim and say, Kim, something happened. I will not be able to make it on Friday. I'm really sorry. What else can we do? But I don't show up. Or let her know the same Friday. So trustworthy people is not that we don't have crisis, but it's that people know in advance when something that you promised or that you committed will not happen. They know in advance, unless it's an accident, of course. We don't plan for accidents. Ideas. Okay, Christine says, I share with my coach, fail equals first attempt in learning. Absolutely. And if we get much more comfortable with making mistakes, because we're really, I was thinking two ideas. My dad told me one day, ignorance and mistakes, you will need to pay for them. Why? Because you didn't have the information, and when you make a mistakes, and naturally we need to pay with training. We need to pay, for example, if I make a mistake driving my car, well, I need to pay a fine because I make a mistake. Even if it was not something that I did on purpose, it was a mistake, and mistakes cost us. Once I really embrace that, when I make a mistake and then I need to put more effort, more energy, more time, it's like, it's part of the deal. I made a mistake and there are consequences and I will fix it. And to fix it, I put energy, time, sometimes money. It's part of the deal. I'm learning. Are you with me? Okay. So if the region of results starts with you, how are you going to challenge yourself? How are you going to challenge your personal accountability? Share with us in the chat. How am I going to challenge my personal accountability? How can you be more accountable? Wait a little bit there. My actions go beyond my words. Nice, Kelly. Darlene, I invite others to call it out and give me feedback to put me back on track. Nice. And that shows a lot of humility. And something that I really like when we really embrace feedback, when in this case, feed forward, whatever, it's like we authentically say thank you for the perception that other people have of us. We don't need to agree on that, but they're giving us the gift or their perspective. So if we really honor that perspective, we grow a lot because people learn to give us feedback, because we're not going to get mad or get sensitive because we're trained to receive it. We're not perfect. So thank you very much for sharing that, Darlene. And feel not getting stuck in only two options, finding the alternatives, reframing. Absolutely, Phil. Melissa, seek feedback from others. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a very, very powerful way to grow. I want to give you 3 questions that if you ask for feedback, there are 3 questions that are super powerful. The first one is like, what am I doing very good? Ask that question, because a lot of times we're asking for what we're not doing good. And we're doing good many times more than we thought. Okay. The second one is, if you were my mentor in any field, what advice do you want to give me? No. And the third one is like, how can we nurture more our relationship? Because growth, it's about relationships. It's about trust. It's about creating connections. And also that's building, that's helping us grow, especially with the people that know ourselves, that know us very well. So have them in mind. And yeah, and well, Analyze is sharing also with me in Feed Forward, ask for specific examples. She's recommending that. Ask for specific examples when someone is giving you feedback or feed forward. Okay, so the region of results is first my accountability. And at the beginning, when I asked, what's the opposite of personal accountability? Some of you wrote blame. And that's what happened. When we point the finger to other people, we have at least 3 fingers pointing ourselves. Are you aware of that? Kelly. That means that before blaming others, first ask yourself, what could I have done differently? Okay. How can I be part of the solution? What am I learning? And any other necessary questions that you want to ask yourselves before you want to make other people accountable. Are you with me? Okay, so have that in mind, because now when you want to give feed forward or you want to give your perspective, okay, do it in first person, because I've heard situations in which someone says, well, all the people in the company believe. No, not all the people in the company. What do you believe? What's your feeling about that situation? If in this case with Phil, if I have been collaborating with Phil and I believe I want to give it forward, he's giving me permission. I said, Phil, I believe that the way that you handle the situation with the client could be handled better. These are my ideas, and I would like to contrast these ideas with you. What are your thoughts? But I'm taking responsibility. I'm talking about myself and my own thinking process and my own feelings, because I could say, Phil, I talked to the team and we all believe, and it's different. Where is your accountability? Where is my accountability there? What do I believe? What do I want to say at the personal level in first person? Okay, so let's be aware, all of us, on that. And also, when we are asking questions, this is a rule of 3, very basic. It's very basic, but it's very powerful. Just ask questions starting with what or how. Once the person really focuses on the what, how, and even I could say the who, the emotions and all of that, then you can say when is that going to happen. But the first is what or who, because one is focused on the actions and how to get there. The second rule, it's express it in first person. Avoid them, us, or you, and focus on action to achieve the result. If you can see at the left side of the screen at the bottom, we have an example. We have 3 examples there. I first ask those questions to me. A lot of times we want to hold other people accountable, but we're not holding ourselves accountable first. What could I have done differently? How can I be part of the solution? What am I learning? If I answer those questions, then I can go with my team in this example and share my feedback. I've been thinking about what happened last year, and these are my learnings. I have been analyzing this. I have been taking responsibility on this. I found these mistakes that I made last year, and this is the way that I want to do things differently this year. What are your thoughts? And you're setting the example to take responsibility. Is that making sense? Is that something that that you have seen? I mean, is this a scenario that it's very common, or it's not that common? What's your feeling about it? And the reason why I'm asking this is because a lot of times I see people not taking responsibility, but making other people take responsibility, but they haven't taken responsibility first. That's why I'm asking. This conversation about that when the leader or the CEO or whatever leadership role there is, when they take responsibility, they are showing a great example of the dynamic in the company, the dynamic in that team. Why? Because they are willing to be vulnerable, and that vulnerability, it's a sign of power too. And Kathy is also sharing, while commonly people coming to coaching want to own their accountability, we all have blind spots and can do more. Yes, that's why it's super important to ask for feed forward, because they show us our blind spots and we can learn from that. Okay, when we are communicating, and Phil also mentioned that before, be aware that you're using a positive language. Sometimes we're not aware that our language is not positive. It's not that we want to be negative, but if we think in our normal life, how much negative information it's out there, it's more than 0.5% of that. I believe there are some studies that say that it's more than 70% of what we heard and see doesn't have a positive connotation. So we really need to be really, really aware of how are we using the language. Exactly, Phil. Again, the proverb, yeah. Focus on what you want to happen. Sometimes we spend too much time on what we don't want to happen, but we don't build what we want to happen. And I've heard this. I don't want you to do this again. I don't want you to do this again. I don't want you to do this again. And it's like, well, but what's your expectation? Let's co-create expectations. Let's have mutual expectations. And that way we're creating the future, okay? And also make sure you're part of the solution. Sometimes, even if you are the leader of a company and the result, and there are certain results that are not happening, there's something that you may be missing. And it's important that we are holding ourselves accountable of what I can do better to follow up, to train, to have one-on-one with my team. There's something that you are missing, and it's important to find it out. And you can find out by your own reflection, but you can also find that out by asking other people. There's a lot of growth and a lot of learning doing so. So this is something that, do you remember that at the beginning, I asked you to have a piece of paper? I don't know if you have been using it, but right now you're going to use it, okay? At the top says, from 1 to 10, how do you rate your personal accountability? And no one is going to see this, okay? But be really, really honest with you. At what level is my personal accountability? Being 10, the highest score, okay? Then at the right side of the piece of paper, think about your most challenging client or your team or your family members. You decided, but we're talking about the environment. What kind of environment you want to rate? Probably it's your closest team. It's your company overall. It's just one client. Okay, how do you evaluate the personal accountability of your team, client, etc.? And this is the important part. We're not going to be accountable for what other people it's accountable for. What I'm trying to say is that we're not going to take responsibility of the duties of other people. For sure not. If you think about coaching, we really teach, well, not teach, we really empower them in their own personal accountability because we're not part of the solution. We're part of the reflection. So our questions are putting them on a situation in which their mindset is just about personal accountability because of the questions that we're asking. What will you do different? What are you learning from this? Because of the context that you are sharing, what are your possibilities? If you think about it, the kind of questions that we're asking, it's holding them accountable, but not because we want to hold them accountable. It's because they're naturally taking the responsibility in which they are experts, which is their lives, their businesses, their families. They're experts on that. No one could be more expert than them. So here we have 2 questions. If you have a client that it's not that you rated him or her low in their accountability, probably because in the next coaching session, that person didn't commit to the action plan that he or she created in the previous coaching session. Okay, how are you challenging your client so he or she takes responsibility? How does that person can be more accountable? And of course, one way to do it is to follow that process that I say, questions with what and how, not why you didn't deliver what you committed to, because that's going to be, as a result, an excuse. Are you following me with that? So here, the idea in the next part is when you're contrasting these ratings, how can you increase both your own personal accountability and the accountability level of the person that you were considering or the team that you were considering? And something that I can, that it's really, really, that you can be sure it will work is ask questions. Ask open-ended questions. Ask unbiased questions. And when I'm saying unbiased, do not put in that question what you are expecting them to answer. Because if we're doing that, we're not a coach. Let's start from there. Okay. So hold them accountable because sometimes we want to bring the solution. And that's why I have had many clients that they have been training themselves here at CCC, the Certified Professional Coach coaching program, because they want to boost their coaching skills, to really challenge the team, not because they want to be a coach. Their goal was not to be a coach, but was to learn how to make effective questions so people are more accountable. Okay, and then next question: what positive habits contribute to your score? If you put yourself, okay, I'm at a 7.5 on personal accountability. Okay, what are the positive habits that that are that are contributing to that 7.5. Okay. And then, of course, what are negative habits that may be limiting your rating? So that 2.5 points is because of what? Because you are procrastinating, because you are what? Because we say at the beginning of the year, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times per week, and then I just go once, and then I go none in May. I'm just kidding, But what's happening that it's limiting my level of personal accountability? Remember, this is a mindset. It's not something that we turn on or off. But if we are getting better at this, what's happening is that we are self-aware when we're focusing on a solution, when we're victimizing ourselves, when we're procrastinating on what's key. So it's raising our self-awareness so we can have ongoing actions to elevate our personal accountability. So that's the last question on that piece of paper that you have. What ongoing actions will elevate your personal accountability? You don't need to put a lot of them. If you just put 1, 2, maximum 3 of things, it could be affirmation, something proactive, positive, that it's challenging for you. Put it in first person. So what ideas, what have you been writing? What ongoing actions will elevate your personal accountability? Share with us, at least a couple of you, share with us. We're starting to wrap up this session, but it will be interesting to know what have you been reflecting with this exercise. I'll read them as soon as you write them. I'll move forward a little bit. Remember that we all have our own definition of success. So personal accountability, it's a mindset, and we can always do something to boost how we're taking responsibility of our lives, of our decisions, of our building habits, and also how can I use my powerful questions so people focus more on their own definition of success, not being part of their solution, just being part of their reflection. So Kelly says, looking myself in the mirror, really looking, also asking for feedback. Nice, nice. There is a tool that I want to share with you. Kathy mentioned the book, The Path of Continuous Growth. If you go to dothepath.com, you can download this personal strategy canvas in English, in PDF or in Word. So just go to Do the Path. It's because the name of the book is Do, because it comes from the kanji from the Japanese kanji, like karate do. It's Do, the word. And why am I sharing this with you? Because it's important that to continue empowering yourself with this mindset of the region of results. Well, how do you see yourself in the future? What's your purpose? It's your code of honor, the values with the value that you use to make your own decisions. How well are you really embracing and using your strengths? What's key that you're working in terms of your weaknesses? Just choose one, that game changer that you will be working on. How are you taking really advantage of the environment and the opportunities? How are you neutralizing the threats that you may be having? What are the projects that you have for 2023? And how are you going to focus on execution? Okay, so the book talks about this. I'm going to go back a little bit here because I have some comments. Phil says, the coach is accountable for asking good questions. Always looking for better questions and looking ahead to better questions is helpful. Absolutely. We're not seeking solutions. We're seeking the right questions that challenge more our clients. That's our job. Kathy, a self-reflective practice is part of our competencies, and one thing that elevates this for me is meeting with another coaching and co-supervisory coaching. Yes, of course. That raises your self-awareness also by being out of the picture, but seeing it from out there, you know? Yeah. So, well, I strongly recommend you download this. It's free. You just go there and download it and you can use it. And also, if you want to learn a little bit more about me, stay connected with me, you can find me in LinkedIn in Genaro Torres, and also on Instagram. You have here all the links. And it has been very fun to be here with all of you. I really hope you enjoyed this session, and I really hope that you find a lot of value during this conversation. Kathy, thank you very much for the opportunity.
And thank you. That was an awesome conversation. Everyone, come on, give a comment to Genaro in the chat box. Tell him what you gained from that session, and give him a sense of how wonderful it was and what that meant to all of us. Afterwards, what I'm going to do, by the way, is put this recording on YouTube, and then I will send everybody a link to the recording on YouTube. And when I do that, I will also CC Genaro, so that you can all see his email. And if you want to reach out to him that way, that'll be an easy way to do it. Genaro, you can see the comments flying through in the chat box. So great session. People are enjoyed the explanation, the accountability. Let's see, the information. They gained something for the conversation. Great way to kick off the new year. So love it. Love it, love it, love it. Awesome conversation. And thank you. Appreciate you being here. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a wonderful 2023. Have an accountable 2023.
There you go.